one of the things that I know I have struggled with the most, maybe in my teen years into college and up to now, is just like a lack of a sense of belonging. For a lot of my life, it was just a common thing for me to feel like I am so different, or I don't belong here. I don't feel like I fit in. I don't feel like this is a place where I'm known, or I feel at home, or I feel secure. And I think that's probably a really common thing. Maybe you clicked on this video because you agree, because of the way I titled it, but lacking a sense of belonging hurts. It stinks, because I think that belonging is one of the most fundamental needs that we have as human beings. A place to be at home, a place to be known, a place to feel like I fit in, a sense of security where I belong. And I want to say that if you feel like you don't belong, it's probably something that's actually much more common than you may think, that is held by other people, because it has less to do with who you are, and has less to do with the way that you speak or act, or the way that you might be different than other people. I think there is a common sense of a lack of belonging of all people, because the lack of belonging is the fundamental insecurity and the fundamental wound of the human person. And here's why. I was praying with this the other day, of this, where you are now, where I am now, this place where I live, where you live, in the context of our lives and our environment. We're not where we were meant to be. We're not in the place that we're supposed to be. Because from the beginning, from a biblical understanding and perspective of the world, Adam and Eve, the first of us, were created in paradise in the Garden of Eden, in communion and lived relationship with God, in the place where they had everything they could want, in the place where God created for them to exist, enjoy together in His divine presence and sharing His divine life. And of course, what happens from the beginning is Adam and Eve fall into sin, and they're kicked out of the garden of Eden, which was the place where you and I were intended, created to live forever in communion with God. That was the place that was supposed to be our home. And in Genesis 3, Adam and Eve they fall, the original sin, and they're banished from the garden. And ever since, you and I have been wanderers far from home, confused and feeling like we don't belong, because we're not in the place that we're meant to be. And the fundamental insecurity of the human person that you experience, that I experience, is that we are people who live away from home. And we are living and existing in a place that we don't belong. Because we don't belong to this world. We're not made for this world. We're made for paradise, to live in communion with God, to share in His divine life. That's what we were made for. That's where we belong. So every ache that we have, every insecurity, every wound that we have stems from the fundamental insecurity and wound that we have as human beings. That comes from sin, from the original sin, all through humanity down to us, is we're far from home, and we're just seeking and aching for the place that we belong, the place that we were made for. So how do we remedy this? How do we heal the fundamental wound, the fundamental insecurity that we share as human beings? Thanks be to God, He gives us a remedy. He gives us the gift of Himself. When we, far from home, far from God, fallen into sin, we're given the gift of the eternal Son of the Father, Jesus Christ, who became man, who took on flesh, was born of the Virgin, and lived and walked among us. And when He died for us and rose again, He said, I will be with you always. And what He left for us is this gift of Himself, His body, his blood, his soul, divinity, his entire person through the church in the gift of the Eucharist, which we can receive every time we go to Mass. Every time you approach a Catholic church, who is there but Jesus Christ himself in the tabernacle, right in the front, right in the middle, and hopefully a shiny gold box. That's our home, because that's where Jesus lives. That's where we were meant to be, right there in his gaze, right there in his presence, in communion with him. When we come to receive Jesus Christ then into our bodies, where he makes our heart his home, we get a taste of home. We get a taste of the place that we belong, bread for the journey as we are making our way back to paradise, where we were meant to be forever. So today, if you just feel that deeply, if you feel that ache of just like, I am far from home, I don't feel like I belong, there is a place for you and for me. It's where we were meant to be always. And it is Eden, it is paradise, it is heaven, where God the Father and Christ the Son reign forever, waiting for you and me, calling us back home.